I also think people's perspective on the value of higher education has changed.
Hmm.
Like you alluded to it when you were a young guy about 10 years ago. But I don't remember feeling pressure from my mom to go to college. Uh, but to be honest, we grew up in a lower, I would say, lower middle class, and that was a way for me to start making money and to get a good job.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think back then that was the main and maybe the easiest way to establish a career. Things are changing differently
yeah.
now. I think there's the which I'm going to talk about the cost and some of the debt, but I think people's idea of college needing to be necessary to lead a successful life is not always the case.
I would agree, and especially now today, just to reinforce that is, man, you look at the opportunities that are out there for somebody. The opportunities that we highlight on our podcast is there are a ton of courses, education opportunities for someone to go out there and self-educate and learn how to create a very good income for themselves as long as they're motivated. So again, I think that that's certainly faded. Anthony, you've been teasing us with some stats on college. Man, share.
You want to share?
Divulge,
You
yeah.
want some numbers?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
What I'm going to do for those watching it on,
We're listening.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
this
that's
is perfect
perfect.
because this just covers your face. Let's see here. Okay. So I have a couple things here, and this is where I think what most people get to is what we're looking at here is this is the average salary in the U.S. by the highest level of education. I would say one thing I noticed when I was doing some research, many of these articles I felt were biased. I mean, for one, I was looking. This was I didn't want to use it because it was biased, but this was done by the government of just the value of going to college. And but this one, honestly, there is still some bias in here. But this is from Bankrate.com, and what it's simply listing is the average salary by different levels of education. And I think that this is what gets most people's attention, particularly parents, where this has the average high school diploma, so no higher education, but just high school, about $47,000 a year, and then a bachelor's degree, we're at 77. So as a parent looking at this, I mean, you're making $30,000 more.
Hmm.
I think that that's why people are pushing their kids to go to go to college. But I think that there's more there is more to there is more to the story here. And what I want to share here is that there are some other things that we need to take into account. So what we're looking at here is the average cost of attendance. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, I had two kids who have went through college, so I'm all too familiar with some of these uh, dollar amounts. But COA, the cost of attendance, that's taken into account not just the tuition, but all the fees, books, housing, and some potential travel. And there's a wide variety here, but for going in state, about 26, or if you're going to a private school, it's about 44, right? So who knows what the average in there, but let's just say the average of those two are about, say, 35,000. Now, what that means is we spent 35,000, which times four is $140,000, which is a lot of money. But also, what I feel we're not also taking into account is when you're in college. Well, Cameron, when you were in college, how much money were you making?
Zero.
Very little,
Yeah.
right? So not only, but so it's a double whammy. We're making basically zero money, and we're spending money. I mean, so this we're estimating the cost is $140,000 but we need to talk about the lost opportunity cost of if you didn't go to college and you got like a real job. I mean, I would think you could make $20 an hour at a minimum, which would be at least 40,000 a year. I mean, so there's 160. So really, there's a combine of almost $300,000 here of the difference. And another thing that I would like to, and well, to me, what I felt in summary here was they're talking about averages,
Hmm.
right? And I think a lot of the people that are just getting with the high school diploma, I think some of them just couldn't or didn't want to apply themselves or into a career. Uh, but for somebody who is a go getter, right, and wants to do well and wants to have a successful career, they don't need to go through college. There's some alternatives that if you're a go getter, you can start in your career from day one, or you can start a business. So, really, I think, particularly, I'm making an assumption here, but the people that are listening to this podcast, their kids are probably going to be more, or at least have that opportunity to be more of a go getter. So I wouldn't be so overwhelmed when we look at this, the difference between uh, high school diploma and a college diploma on the amount of money that they're going to make. Because if you are really applying yourself, I think that's probably the biggest factor of you applying yourself, whether you went to college and apply yourself in a job, or you don't go to college and you apply yourself in a job or a business. I think that work ethic and grit will return a high, make a higher impact in the results, whether than just the amount that you have on the paper. And when my daughter was going to college, uh, at this point, she had wanted to do something in music or managing bands or booking bands, something to do with like entertainment. So we went around. I mean, we live in Las Vegas, so there's a lot of entertainment here. And I had a client who was the VP of Mandalay Bay, and so he was in charge of doing exactly what she wanted to do. I mean, he was even a producer for Prince's last tour. I
Wow.
mean, some cool stories. And I asked him, like, how important is it for that college degree? And at that point, he had said, it, it's just a check. And really, we know if somebody goes to college doesn't mean that they really know more, but it does mean that they've completed something.
Mm.
So for them, it was more of a test for them being able to complete, a complicated task, which that might cost you like 300 grand to complete that test. But what he had said, it didn't really matter what brand name it was on there, but that you had completed it. But also, I'm hearing more and more now, particularly even some of the governments and Tesla has done it, where they have removed the college degree requirement. A lot of times they're realizing that that really doesn't have as much value as people perceive. And I'm going to show one more number here, because this part I thought was very interesting. And what this is showing is, let me make sure I got the right one. Okay, this is showing the amount of student loan debt by age groups. So for 24 and older, their average balance is about 14 grand. But what I thought was interesting, each time they go up about 10 to 15 years, the balance is going up. 35 to 49, 44,000. This is what I thought was interesting, but to be honest, also scary. 62 and older, Cameron, what is the average balance?
49,000.
So almost 50 grand is the balance. So what that's showing to me is either two things. One, people aren't paying off their loans, or grandma and grandpa are co-signing
Yeah.
on their kids. And when they're looking at that average balance, because I've looked at some at some research, and it was saying, oh, the average loan balance per borrower was what I want to say was like about 29,000, 30 grand. Like that didn't sound that much, but they're not talking about grandma and grandpa. And so it really gets down to is what is that value? And I think we're going to bash higher education quite a bit. Uh, but one thing I want to note is it's one thing to bash it and you're talking about it. Uh, it's another thing when it's your child who's graduating high school and now you got to walk the walk. Do you like that's a big commitment of your child not going to college, and part of it is the stuff that we're learned or that we are taught, and it's difficult, I would say, in two reasons. For one, um just being real, when you're a junior or your child is a junior or a senior in high school, one of the things everybody's going to be asking, oh, what college are you going to?
Hmm.
What's next, right? And even as a parent, like there is a little peer pressure. Oh, oh, your son's not going to college. Like they think that they think that something's wrong,
Hmm.
so I just want to just to be upfront. I had that same concern when my daughter was going to college, and then concern of what is she going to do if she doesn't go to college. And I think that that's the important piece, right? Is that what are they going to do? They need to be pursuing education. The question is, what's the best place to do that? College is one way, and depending on what you're doing, that might be the best way. But if you want to be in business or want to do some other things, college may not be the best the best value for your dollars and also for your time.
You want to see the entire episode? Click here. If you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, click here. If you want to see if infinite banking is for you and you have some questions, hop on a discovery call with us and one of our coaches. The link for that will be in the description.